Welcome to Difficult Conversation Africa broadcast. I present to you the host, Yinka Olaito.
All right, welcome to Difficult Conversation Podcast Africa, a platform that raises issues many are afraid to raise, a platform that challenges the status quo and help us to face the issue that affect development across Nigeria and Africa. In today's, we want to say thank you for always being there for us. Thank you for your consistency as our viewers, and we appreciate all the contribution that you make. Today's episode, we are looking at climate change impact on an Africa preparedness. We keep assuming that climate change effect is still very low in Africa, but how prepared are Africans, Nigeria, and African countries with regards to the impact that climate change is having? As we know, we begin to see the impact of that climate change regularly through its sea level and all of them that has happened to us, not only in Nigeria. The direct impact of climate change involves a multitude of phenomenal things that includes rising sea level, heat waves, and all of them. And then the fact remains that the weather continues to be unpredictable and there's fluctuation in raindrops across Nigeria and Africa. Though it is on record that both Nigeria and broader African continent can actively respond to climate change with a mix of policy, firework, and international collaboration and adaptation, but we haven't seen enough that have been done. So this forms the background of the conversation today, and I have a guest with me, Ugochi Ayaka Olugbo. Ugochi Ayaka Olugbo is a multimedia environmental journalist, storyteller who had worked and covered a lot of issues around climate change in Nigeria and Africa. She had worked for BBC, Al Jazeera. She ran the first household climate change TV series in Nigeria, but is presently based in Paris. And therefore, I would like to welcome to the program, Ugochi Ayaka Olugbo.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for doing the work you have been doing. I'm so happy that you are still shining more light on as an environmental multimedia journalist. At least I have known you as far back as 2012 or thereabouts, and your work keeps speaking for you. I'm glad that you are still doing the work that you are passionate about.
Thank you very much. I'm not based in Paris. I'm based in a city called Saint Louis. And thank you very much for your kind words. I took a break for about 1 year, and I'm trying to get back.
So we go to the question. I'm sure you've listened to the background of the conversation that we're about to have. The question is, there's urgency in the world approach to climate change issues, but many still believe that conversation is all about grammar and being politically correct. Is that what it is? That conversation around climate change is about grammar and being politically correct, especially for Africans?
I think in so many ways, I would say that a lot of people have that idea that, especially in recent times, I've seen so many people, really castigating climate activists and climate journalists. And yet they all feel what a lot of us feel. They feel the very tangible, indicators that something has changed, something is changing, and it's getting worse each year, as we go. They see it in their communities. They see the extreme, the extreme sun. They see the extreme weather issues like flooding and desertification. Even if they don't see it, they see videos. If they don't see it as first person victims, I would say, they see it in videos. It's all over the internet, yeah? So for people who still choose to not accept this, so it might be just a case of, as you said, some see it as a political conversation where if, for example, President Trump doesn't believe in climate change and I support President Trump, I therefore do not believe in climate change. Yeah? So for some people, it's that. But also for some people, it's all about, I need to eat first. Bele gas to food
Exactly.
first. You understand? So if you tell them that this is not what is important to them right now, they just need to eat food, drink water, get health care, get access to all of this. That is what is important to them. But they are also forgetting that climate change has an impact on all of this. Their ability to access food, their ability to have security, their ability to find clean drinking water, and even health to preserve their health. They're all connected. And all of these we're seeing increasing health issues. We're seeing increasing lack of food or access to food. We're seeing all of these increasing and increase in say pests that are affecting crop production. All of these are as a result of the climate that has changed. It's no more what it used to be. So I think for some, as you said, it's just being political correct. Some people is just sheer ignorance, and for some it's just a matter of this is not what is important to me right now.
All right. Maybe, like you said, for some it's about this is not what is important to me right now, and I think that's the approach that we have here in our policy, in an approach to it. And for those who watched CV about a week ago around Mokwa in Niger State, we saw the effect of climate change, where erosion was flood and over 100 people were swept away and all the issues. But following up on that question, the issue of greenhouse emission, gas emission, that's like a blanket wrap around heart trapping, the sun heat and raising the temperature. What have you to say about this? Because these are impacts that are visible. Why is it that we still continue to think that that's not important? That's not food on my table.
For me, this is also an issue of taking it back to capitalism and in present day as well, capitalism, colonialism, where we have countries that have benefited from a distorted planet, that have been and businesses as well that have benefited from the impacts that we're feeling today. These are the countries that are not really stopping or not reducing. They would say, sometimes it's words. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to provide finance, but all of this is that it remains the same. You understand? And then the countries that suffer for it are those countries that have really contributed just about 4% to the issue of climate change. Yes, Nigeria still flares gas, sorry, gas. But yeah, because my French and English. So
I know,
I
I
know.
know.
so yes. So the issue of I was in Abidjan, in a farming community in Abidjan, and I could see firsthand how this has affected cocoa farmers. And I often say that my worry is that with the lack of leadership that we have, with corruption that is going on, that when our country is ready to develop or even to make that leapfrog into sustainable development, we may not have the finances to be able to do that. We might not even have the resources because we are depleting all the resources at a very, very alarming rate. And not just, Nigeria or Africa as a country, they are being depleted by companies and countries thousands of miles away. And this has happened for centuries. It's been like that from how cocoa was processed and exported, how coffee, oil, even right now, uranium and other natural resources, how they've been exploited and how environments have been, devastated. And yet it still happens until today. We see countries that tell us about, net zero, yet they are also sponsoring oil companies that are taking, gas from taking petrol, taking oil from Nigeria and destroying environments, digging pipelines and destroying the environment up to bring it, to their country where it's of course needed. So yes, I would say that the issue stems from not just the present, from the past. And for me, not so much has changed in terms of exploitative ways of taking natural resources and destroying entire environments and leaving them like that up until this day.
Yeah, you talk about a country that had benefited from distorted the environment climate change. So, what can we say about them? And why is Africa, if African countries are not part of this distorted, are not part of those who have benefited, why is Africa taking the heavy burden of climate change?
Yeah, of course, because we are not as developed as these countries are. They are able to cushion the effects of climate change. They are better prepared. And unfortunately, as well, I know that every country is feeling the impacts. Some deny it, some see it, but some countries are better prepared than African countries. Even look at our schools, look at our roads, look at our, we don't have infrastructure to tackle all of these issues. Some countries have, they saw the future or they've started preparing 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and they keep preparing. But in Nigeria, we see what happened in Niger State, where every year is the same topic, is the same issue. Yet, we're never prepared enough to foresee that this is going to happen again. This might happen again. What can we do to, avert the loss of lives and loss of property? Yeah. So if we don't have that kind of leadership that takes into consideration the lives of people, yeah, and who do not really get punished. So this has happened, and nobody's going to get punished for it. Nobody is supposed to answer to why did this happen again in Niger State? Yes, there's climate change, but why were we not better prepared for this year? For this, why did we not anticipate this year? You understand? So if I always say that when there's no leadership, it's tiring to, as a journalist like myself, to keep covering climate change. When, for example, you go to Niger, you were in Niger State 2 years ago to cover the flooding. Next year you'd go again to cover, and you report the same thing. You see the same people. You see people crying. You see women who are suffering. You see children who are suffering. It hurts that in 2 years it's gonna keep becoming. It's gonna be the same thing over. Nothing is gonna change, and it's exhausting for people like myself who's a journalist. But it's just because of the passion, for the people. Sometimes they even tell you, "Madam, you come here last year. You come here 2 years ago. Nothing don't change." Sometimes they don't even want to talk to you anymore because of a lack of leadership. Elections matter. Yeah, so we're talking about how people see climate change as a political issue. Elections matter. If we keep electing the wrong people, or if we keep having the wrong people take power, the trees will not grow. We'll plant the trees and they will not thrive. You understand? We'll keep having how people are moving down from different parts of to the north, and moving down because of drought, desertification, and there's no way to check them. There's no way to control and say, okay, what's your identity, at least just because before you pass. If we don't have all of these things in place, it's going to get worse, for us and for Nigeria in terms of climate change and insecurity. They're all connected.
Thank you for that holistic approach. Now we are seeing the impact, we are seeing the effects. As somebody who has covered the story for years, I can see your frustration. Why are there no changes? But my question is, as somebody who had experienced and had covered all this, what will be your best approach? What is the best approach that Africans can look at, and will collaboration help in addressing this? I mean, from your own perspective, what you have seen so far.
Sincerely, yeah. I say my oh my God. Sincerely, it's a mess, For me, it's a mess. As I said, it's tiring as well, because we see over and over the same issues year in, year out. We see government that's, a lot of times it's just words. We see our delegates at climate conferences who, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there. Maybe they're there for business, they're there just to show up, they're not participating as they should. Yeah. I think that, we can keep collaborating, and I always say that we can't do much. I don't want to give up here. I don't want to give up here. But Nigeria has a lot of plans. They are part of the They have their nationally determined contributions. Nigeria is trying to get to net zero by 2050 or 2060. But also Nigeria depends on fossil fuel to build the infrastructure. And also when these countries and these companies are not contributing the amount that they're supposed to commit, towards tackling climate change, the gas will still be flared. Fossil fuel will still be explored. And the hypocrisy of also telling Nigeria to, not use your fossil fuel, yet you're also building pipelines in 2025 to move fossil fuel from Nigeria to Europe, and then telling Nigerians, So that's where the politics comes in. Yeah, when people say it's just politics, you understand, because some people are just telling you don't do this, but they're doing the same thing that they're telling you not to do. They're telling you don't cut your forest when people need forest. Yes, I'm not saying you should cut your forest, but sometimes they have some projects that make it impossible for farmers or for forest communities to even get into their farms. They ask them to leave it as a carbon, what's it called? To gain carbon credits for companies. So these companies keep polluting, and then they buy carbon. That's why some people question some of these mechanisms. Then they buy carbon credits from communities that are still poor. You understand? And then they tell them, don't touch your forest, don't do this. And a lot of the communities depend on those forests for food, for medicine. So even the climate conferences are getting tiring, because currently I saw a report where they said that those who came, the banks that attended the conference, that attended the conference, the oil companies, even the agrochemical companies, all of these companies that are contributing to climate change, they're the ones really right now at the forefront of these conferences, and they're the ones determining what's going on. So it looks like the more we fight, sincerely, as a journalist, as I'm saying it a second time, it's exhausting. It's painful to see that my people are suffering, people across the world are suffering, and there's just nothing much you can do about it apart from reporting and reporting and reporting. Why? Because there are powerful people, powerful elements across the world who determine who lives and who dies and who has access to Mars. It's exhausting.
Wow. One way experts are suggested to dealing with climate change impact is to reduce the level of emission to zero. We know that this will require strong will and funding. Are African countries being strategic in this? You have already said a lot around this, that we can continue to deceive ourselves and hoping that something will change. Are you sure that we are prepared for that? But because what you have just shared is that they say that you need the forest, don't cut the forest, and then other international organizations are coming to actually do what they say you should not do. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that, we have activists that, they're still, screaming out loud. They're still asking, demanding, change. They're taking, there's an organization, I think we Move Europe. So they've come to realize that African countries can do all they like. Developing countries can do whatever they can, as much as they can. But if these companies that are behind all of this are not tackled, the issue would remain like this for a long time. So I've seen organizations that are taking these companies to court. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. Like the Greenpeace lost a case recently. We also seen like the Ogoni farmers that took Shell to court. They won. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. But I hope that there'll be more wins and more message passed on to these people. They control a lot of things. They control even the war in Gaza. They control the war in Sudan. They control, they are so really.
So they are really more powerful than what we think, that we're just scratching the face.
Yeah. Because tell me how we're able to gather money to tackle COVID quickly, because that one could kill anyone,
everybody,
no matter how big, no matter how you're so instantly. And they were able to in weeks and months, they raised all the funds they needed in billions. And then for climate change, we're still here many years after. They're not just 20% of what is needed every year to tackle climate change. So you see, it's a sad situation. And Africa can just keep collaborating, keep supporting young entrepreneurs, keep supporting people and projects that's for me and for so many others, making that link now between capitalism and neocolonialism and colonialism and climate change and the powerful ones, yeah. It makes you realize how, yes, we're powerful, but how we need so much power and for the people to come together across the world to, trample capitalism and to trample those foundations that, hold them up.
I think this is a deep topic that we may not be able to finish today. But let's go to climate change impact is feasible in many ways. Human health, environment, and to combat all this is essential. For Africa, it appears that data is also is not a priority, and you need data to fight. How do we deal with this?
Yeah, I think Africa needs to invest in data collection and data management. And thankfully now we have AI. Yes, there's also the issue of AI and climate change and data centers. Yeah, but they are, it can be used in some ways to help Africa connect and share data and not work in silos and come together to work together and be a strong voice. We are disrespected across the world because of the leadership that we have, because we have Africans who are leaving the country, a very rich continent, leaving the continent because of the leadership. Yeah. So if it's possible for African nations to work together, there are countries that already have better systems to learn from them, collaborate with them, and find ways of sharing data and also using local knowledge. Combining those together, because we know that our ancestors they had ways. They had ways of knowing things. They had ways of farming. They had ways that worked for them before we had chemicals and um, other things that have really destroyed what we used to have. So if we can go back to those and share data and share the science, connect scientists together. We have fantastic scientists across the continent. If they can come together and work together, the organizations that actually work to bring them together, to get them to share their research and make it more accessible to everyone, I think that would help in sharing data and for us to work together as a continent.
Yeah, because of our time, you have been a journalist, an environmental journalist for over a decade, maybe 1.5 decades at least that I've known you. And you have been passionate about that. Now, based on your experience, what advice will you give to our government across Africa?
I would
what do you think we should do now?
To love your people. It's all about being kind. A kind government would support its people, would help build resilience, would invest in the people. We can't keep seeing children learning outside under the trees. If the government can really work together, both at the local levels or the federal level, if they can come together and remove politics aside and begin to develop the country. As I said, my worry is that when we're finally ready to develop, we may not have the resources to develop. That's my biggest worry. Yeah. But I hope that
what gave you that impression?
Because the world is running out of natural resources. Those who are smarter are taking them and building their own nations. They were not building. So that's my worry. And we know that some resources are non-renewable. They are gone. And Africa has so much. We have wildlife that we can tap into. And if Nigeria has this, but a lot of our forests are destroyed. They're getting chopped down every day for, of course, for infrastructure, that is for private property a lot of times. We have people who are chopping down trees and building huge estates, and sometimes they don't even factor in the need for these trees. They call them witches and wizards. Sometimes they just want to take more land, so they destroy. So if we can be able to at least protect what we have as a government, protect it for the people, provide them with ways of finding food, provide security and health. If people have food, they won't go to kill endangered species. Sometimes it's just hunger and it's just for food. You understand? I feel so when I go out, I see that some people, they are decent human beings. They want a better life, but sometimes they are pushed to do some of these things. And also when there's no punishment, for government, not for just for citizens, but for government officials who under their watch things go wrong. I want people to be
Now, and finally, just a few words, maybe a 60-second. For citizens, do you think there's a way they can protect themselves against the impact of climate change? At least if government is not picking up the responsibility very fast. What do you think the citizen can do? Because to prevent life loss and all those things that we are witnessing.
As local communities, just do your best, come together, protect your waters, your natural resources, your streams and your rivers, protect them as much as you can. Citizens like the ones in Ogoni have so far for over 30 years stopped Shell from exploiting their oil. But in recent times, that's why I keep telling you that powerful forces are sometimes stronger than the citizens. In recent times, there's like the divide and conquer, where the government is trying to come back into Ogoni to continue to destroy Ogoni. So I think citizens can still try to come together to be powerful forces, to resist and to say no, to plant trees. I come from a community that was ravaged by erosion. It's called Amucha in Imo State. But people came together and planted trees. I think with the support of the then president, Shehu Shagari, they were able to plant trees and stem that. They stopped that erosion. So there are some things that people can do, men, women, children, and come together to at least plant trees to provide, to stop the extreme heat. Trees are important. If we don't chop them down as much as you can. They're not witches, they're not wizards. And then also plants. And also plants. Leave the old ones. They are very important. That's the message I'll leave. You see, ancient trees. Again, witches don't live inside. Leave those trees. They are important for your existence. They're important for your children. Leave them. As you're building new houses, in the Southeast, it's getting really bad because everybody wants to build a house and we're chopping down at a very alarming rate. And I think also in Lagos. So leave those trees as much as you can. Continue to campaign for better governance, continue to campaign that we have good leaders, and vote wisely. Vote wisely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ugochi Ayaka Olugbo. Thank you for the insight that you have shared. Really, really insightful. Thank you for raising the stepping up conversation about the powerful forces that are still making things and making decisions. We can only say that I hope that things changes, because if you have covered the climate environment for years and you seem to be a bit worried about the situation getting worse year in, year out, I don't know what else to say. But we must be optimistic. We must continue to look at the possibility that things will change, and we must. And then I like the part where we can say that citizens at local level, these are things they can do on them within their own effort to ensure that there's safety and then the impact is minimized. I want to say thank you once again, and thank you for your time. Thank you for doing a great work and continue to be the best that you can. Okay, to our viewers, we want to say thank you for listening to this episode again. Thank you for the feedback you are giving to us. We really appreciate them. And thank you for always being there. Once again, don't forget to always subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep giving us the feedback that you want us issues that you want us to discuss, and the kind of expert you are looking forward to listen to. We really appreciate you. Follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on X and Instagram. And if you want a private conversation, you can also send us email at info@difficultconversationafrica.org. See you in the next edition. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. For inquiry, please send an email to info@difficultconversationafrica.org. Telephone 0809 3160591. Please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Difficult Conversation Africa. See you soon.